So
Wow.
in there, in the secret room, in the secret, every crime mystery writer needs a bookshelf door. I have a little calendar, and I instead of word count, I keep up with hours.
Okay.
Because so much of writing is rewriting, and if you get so lost in just trying to make new words, you might not take the right care of the words that you have.
Hello, I'm Derek Cash with the North Little Rock Public Library System and want to welcome you to Meet the Author. Today, we are glad to welcome back Eli Cranor to share his new novel, Mississippi Blue 42. Cranor has played quarterback at every level from Pee Wee to professional and now serves as the writer in residence at Arkansas Tech. His previous novels have collected several awards and accolades, including the Edgar Allan Poe Award for Best First Novel and a nomination for the Mark Twain Voice in American Literature Award. Thank you for joining us today. And Eli, thank you for being on the program. We really look forward to this.
Absolutely, Derek. So,
Okay.
so glad to be here. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Let me just start out by just asking you a general kind of opening question. How did you come up with the idea of your book?
So this is funny. I mean, if you go back in the time frame of my books and how they all when they were written and then when they all came out. So I finished the first draft of Don't Know Tough in 2017, and then
Okay.
that book didn't come out until 2022. There was just
Mhm.
this, it took me a while to find my way into the publishing industry. Um, and the book that I wrote right after Don't Know Tough, somewhere there at the end of 2017 when I started it, was a version of Mississippi Blue 42.
Oh,
So
okay.
I had stayed in this kind of football, world. And then I wrote it. It was called Blood Orange Fall. It was a much darker college football novel than the one that what Mississippi Blue 42 ended up being. And then I wrote other books, and it was something I just kept coming back to. I kept thinking, and the original idea just came. I mean, I played college football. I never got any money. I was never good enough. I played one season down in South Florida, Florida Atlantic with Howard Schnellenberger, who started the U at the University of Miami. And then I came back at Division II, and really there's none of that going on. Nobody's paying you in a Waffle House parking lot. But there was a lot of really good reporting right around 2013, 2014. There was a great article called Meet the Bagman that came out in SB Nation by Stephen Godfrey. And I just remember, as a dude growing up in Arkansas, like thinking of college football as like this was, so pure, and they played for the love of the game. And there were, and as I started to read that article, I started to think, oh, damn, like, is this really going on? Like, are these boys really getting these bags of money in a McDonald's bag, And so I started researching and digging in deeper, and there was something about that and that time period. Um, that I thought paralleled really well with our country.
Mhm.
And I thought that if I could get this right and talk about football and how we all believe football to be one thing, but right in that kind of window of time, we were all having our eyes clockwork orange, ripped open to how the sausage is actually made in our country. And that was really where it came. That's where Ray, the rookie agent, whose father is a football coach, she really loves football. She really believes in it. And yet she goes through the crucible of this book, having to kind of come to terms with what all is really going on behind the scenes. So that was the seed.
Mhm. I think in the book, I mean, I think you do a great job of bringing up the love of football in the South. When I lived in Mississippi, I heard students there because I was teaching at working as a librarian in Mississippi. I heard students comment about what it was in Alabama. You'd hear ministers in church talking about "Go Red," Big Red, I guess, for Alabama, and that you bring up in your book that game day is holy day for the Bible Belt. And I've also heard that people in Texas, they'll hold their high school boys back a year so they can stay play football another year here, and I think you do a good job of just showing how it's just like a religion. It's part of life for these people in the South. I'm not making fun. It's just more of an observation.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was me coming to terms with it. I mean, and through the research of the book and I think religion is a good and I don't have a problem with fanaticism. I don't have a
Hmm.
problem really being passionate about college football. I know from my own life, the benefits that and the discipline that can come from being an athlete and doing that. But here's where I have a problem. You mentioned church and football. Churches and universities are both 501(c) nonprofit organizations. So what that means is they don't pay taxes.
Hmm.
So here you have this whole institution who's the college football program, the football team alone is bringing in, a program like University of Arkansas, right around probably $20 million of profit per year. And they were at this point, the point in time I'm talking about in the book, the people who the fans are coming to see, the players, are not making a single dime of that 20 million and the university doesn't have to pay any tax. I mean, it was just like, I don't know. As I started to build, these kind of symbols and metaphors and connect it to church and connect it to our country's past and the way that the American dream, all those things kind of collide on the field here in this book, and that was a lot of fun.
I want to bring up I want to bring up something. You bring up Brett Favre in your book at the beginning, and if I remember correctly, it didn't look too flattering. Now, if I'm wrong, correct me. But I'm just wondering when you talk, or you also bring up, is it Mississippi State, the University of Mississippi?
Yeah.
As an author, what I'm not worried about, I'm just for the people who are watching this and writing books. Did you have to consult with lawyers? You want to make sure, like if I write, let's say we're to write about Eli Cranor in a book, and I start saying, even if it's fiction, and start writing negative things, you can get a lawyer and say, hey, I'm going to sue him. Did you have to consult with lawyers to find out it's okay if I bring them up? I've done nothing wrong, that sort of thing. Do you understand the point I'm trying to get
Sure.
across?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. And here's my answer. One of my very best friends is a lawyer up in Boston. We graduated from Washita together. And
Hmm.
his favorite saying to me is, Eli, anybody can sue you for anything.
True.
So all they got to do is want to sue you. In terms of Brett Favre, I used to really love Brett Favre.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I loved watching Brett Favre. I loved the way he played. I loved the gunslinger kind of, mentality. And then to be quite honest, he broke my heart with all of that welfare scandal stuff that went down in Mississippi. I was just so
Mhm.
disappointed and so disgusted. So yeah, I thought this would be a fun way to kind of get him mixed up in this. And people ask about that, getting sued or whatever. And if Brett Favre sued me for this book, it would be the best publicity that this book ever got.
Yes, yes, yeah. Okay. You've answered the question, and we'll hope for the best. I think I'm going to segue into something else. I think one of the best parts of the books is when you have Ray and Moses and his grandmother, Geraldine, and
Mhm.
Darren, in that, I want to say, 10-minute conversation. You
Yeah.
forget that Ray is a federal agent. She's just interviewing. You did such a great job of keeping the reader entertained, and just all four of them, or mostly it's Geraldine and Ray, but just still the four of them there. And you did a great job of getting that conversation flow. And if there's any way you can comment on that, I would appreciate. I don't know if you can, because I'm not
Yeah.
really asking a question. Yeah.
No, no, no. I know what you're talking about. That was a big part of, my first three novels are all set where I grew up, which is
Hmm.
foothills of the Ozarks, up in the Ozarks. And as you know, and most Arkansasians know, I mean, if you go from here to the Mississippi Delta region of eastern Arkansas, um, the cultural and geographical differences are astounding. They're,
Hmm.
it's completely different. So I was born in Forest City and lived there till I was 5. and went back to Forest City, for all my holidays, where all my family still lives. And for me, like that scene was I'm so glad you mentioned it because it was really kind of a high point of me getting to really lean into that culture and lean into, the place and the soybean fields and the how one little house, out farm and the farming, kind of culture. And that scene's just outside of Clarksdale, Mississippi. Which of course has got, Mississippi's just got so much cultural history too. The Delta has
Yes.
so much cultural history. When you go to Clarksdale and you're talking about Robert Johnson and you're talking about the Crossroads and you're talking about the blues and how those stories parallel with a young black quarterback like Moses McLeod and the sort of deals that he's having to make or not make, in order to achieve his dream. And then his grandmother Geraldine, who raised him. Yeah, man, she's just one of those characters that this will sound cliche, but it's true. I mean, she just started to talk. Yeah, I mean, she was telling that story about Codell, her former boyfriend. Everybody used to call him Code, and it's just like some of the things she would say. I was like, oh yeah, I wish I could have got her. I did sneak her in at the very, very end of the book on like a 3 paragraph long chapter,
Okay.
where she's watching the Cotton Bowl at the
Uh-huh.
climactic moment. But yeah, I like that a lot.
Uh-huh. Now, so that the reader will know, this novel involves football, but it also involves federal agents who are investigating possible, is it paying off players, things like that, sometimes to throw games, that sort of thing. I say that so that I could introduce another question I wanted to ask or comment on. It absolutely disgusted me the way that Eddie pimped his daughter out, Ella May. It's the saddest part of the whole book. And it goes on. It may not be in this sort like football, but people do that to each other, sometimes to their children. And I'm glad you didn't dwell on it, but just enough to introduce it. But maybe you can comment on that. I felt sorry for her. I felt in a way sorry for him because he was afraid he was gonna get murdered. They were gonna hang him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So just to frame all this, one thing I should have mentioned earlier is we live in a new era of college sports. We live in a world where players can get paid.
Uh-huh.
And through name, image, likeness, NIL, which just means that the universities, those tax-free institutions, they don't have to pay the players, but you and me, we can pay them. If you're a fan of the university, then we can pay them. So
Mhm.
that's the world we live in now. And most of the people that I know or don't like it. They wanted to go back to the good old days. They want to, and that again, it really that sort of sentiment, that nostalgia really perked my ear for like, oh, this sounds familiar. This sounds familiar with other things I'm hearing across our country. Like we want to go back to this time that didn't exist. So my point was to try and show them through this book what it was really like, to play football
Mhm.
before you could get paid, to
Mhm.
what these players were putting on the line. And now to get to your question, it wasn't just the players. I mean, a gridiron girl, so Ella May Pride is the daughter of Eddie Pride. Eddie Pride
Mhm.
runs a lawn chair business down on the Gulf. He's got some money. Um, but he is paying these players out of his own pocket. And then he also is enlisting his daughter as a gridiron girl, which she
Mhm.
essentially goes on like a recruiting trip and takes the boysies out to a bar or out to a club or out to a social gathering. And so, I mean, that stuff's not fabricated at all. I mean, like that, a gridiron girl is a real thing. Now the volume does get turned up in the book. LMA's situation does start to rise. But yeah, it's pretty sick too.
Okay. Yes. Because you're an expert on football, something that caught my eye for something I do not know anything about. You talk about Moses' finger digits being the best proportion based on Ray's father. He taught her. How did you know about that for holding the ball? Did someone comment on that, or were you taught that? I mean, it's not something you would normally know to look up.
Yeah, yeah. So, what it is it's from your pinky to your thumb. That's where
Ah,
it's measured.
okay,
So
okay, all
it's
right.
and so when the reason that's measured is because that's what's really gripping a football. Like you
Mm-hmm.
see, if you're doing it's those your pinky and your thumb. And so the reason they measure that, like, and where they measure that is like at the NFL combines. So like when, they'll bring them in and they do their height, their weight, how fast they run a 40-yard dash, how high they can jump, how many times they can do a 250-pound bench press, all these, but one of the things they do for quarterbacks is they measure. And
Mm-hmm.
even so it's more of a predictor than say height, because in the past it was always you had to be 6'4" or 6'5" to be a really good quarterback. But then you had these enigmas like Steve Young or Russell Wilson or even Brett Favre, who was like 6'1" and not, some big giant like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. And what they found was that measurement was it matched. So like even if they were shorter, they had hands that were the size of the taller quarterbacks.
Okay, I'm glad you explained that because I just found
Yeah.
it fascinating. It's just one more facet of the book that
Yeah.
it just makes you think. And so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I don't know if this would be the best way to ask this. There was a conversation in the end of the book between Frank and Eddie, and Frank is leaving Eddie. And I don't know if you know what I'm referring to, but Eddie's staying there, blah, 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 talking, and Frank is leaving. And I thought it goes to show you've got two conflicting worlds crashing into
Mm,
each other. And Frank was more in the past. I mean, not Frank, Eddie was more in the past. And Frank was just more or less, and also Frank is from Washington, or at least not from the South. It's just two conflicting worlds. And I thought that was just in two or three paragraphs, you did a good job. I don't have it marked where it is. And I don't know if you can remember where I'm referring
yeah, I
to.
know what you're
Okay,
talking
then
about.
if you can comment on that, I thought it was a great, something that a non-literary person I caught on to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Frank's coming, Frank is Ray's partner, and he's
Yes.
a veteran FBI agent. He's on his way out, really just kind of buying his time with this boring, in his mind, white collar crime investigation into corruption at this college football. But then Ray comes in and she's so on fire about it. She's so passionate about it. And then some stuff happens in the town that it kind of lights a fire under Frank again. So what we get on this scene is this is where he's finally going to do something, and he goes directly to the bagman, Eddie Jr., and has a talk with him, and is trying to basically coerce him into cooperating. But throughout the conversation, they have this kind of friendly back and I don't know if it's friendly. They don't start off friendly, but they end up kind of realizing that like maybe they're not so different, but at the same time, there's nothing they can do to fix it, and
Mhm.
so they just end up parting ways,
Yeah.
and yeah, there's a lot of north south, themes at play.
Uh-huh. Eli, in your last interview with us, you said that the best or you quoted Ray Bradbury saying that you don't become a real writer until you write 1,000,000 words. How is the count going?
Well, I hit my million before Don't Know Tough. I mean, that
Uh-huh.
was, I had three manuscripts that I had written prior to that, and like 200 and something short stories over the span of about 7 years before 2022 came along. That book was published. So,
Uh-huh.
but no,
Are you still
I got
counting?
no, I don't count anymore.
Okay, you don't. Okay.
And I really don't even count word count. I have this little calendar. Oh, you guys might like this. This will be fun to show people. So last time you saw me, we were in like a dungeon. And since then I've been able to remodel, and finish out my office. So I now have nice shelves and things like that. But the fun thing here is this. Are you ready?
Yes. Oh, wow.
And so
Wow.
in there, in the secret room, in the secret, every crime mystery writer needs a bookshelf door. I have a little calendar, and I instead of word count, I keep up with hours.
Okay.
Because so much of writing is rewriting, and if you get so lost in just trying to make new words, you might not take the right care of the words that you have. But I think Bradbury's rule is very important when you're first starting out because sometimes perfection can get in the way of the good. And
Oh,
when you're first starting, you don't even know that you don't know, so you just need to keep going. But yeah, now I have a little calendar in there and I just write for the hours.
okay. All right. Eli, if the viewers of this program want to purchase your book, how can they do that?
Man, it's really easy. Because my name is Eli Cranor, you can just Google Eli Cranor and you can find anything you need to
Uh,
find. You can
okay.
find my website, my social media. You can get the books wherever you get books.
Okay.
Um,
Barnes and
so
Noble, that sort of Amazon, that
it's
sort of thing.
one. It's the night. Yeah, wherever you get your books, you can just type my name in. And
Okay.
and so as far as I can tell, I'm the only one out there. I'm the only
Okay.
Eli Cranor.
Okay.
So
Yeah. And if people want to comment,
it's
you've got
easy.
your own website so they can come contact you that way.
Yeah,
Okay. All
there
right.
is a submission form on my website that you can hit me up on that.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you for
All
having me,
right.
Derek. It's
Okay.
always
So, if you're interested in reading Mississippi Blue 42, you can check it out from the library or purchase it wherever books are sold. Also, you can find more information at sohopress.com. That's SOHO press.com or at our website, nlrlibrary.org. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next time.